It's good to be with you this afternoon, as always. Today's readings indicate that being a disciple of Christ requires action and sacrifice. I love the Epistle of James. I was told recently that Martin Luther wanted to not include the letter of James in the Bible, and you can see why if you know anything about Luther. James says, "What good is it if someone has faith but does not have works? If a brother or sister has nothing to wear and has no food for the day, and one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, keep warm, eat well,' but does not give them the necessities of the body, what good is it? So also faith of itself, if it does not have works, is dead." I'm thinking St. Paul might be from Milwaukee, because he speaks so directly. There's no kind of Minnesota nice there. He speaks very directly. He speaks Milwaukee direct. So I'm sure there's some linkage there. Our faith does require action. We all know that. And the whole faith-works dichotomy is kind of a false dichotomy, as theologians have worked out over the years. We have to live our faith. We have to act on our faith. We have to express our faith. Or it remains empty. And that, I think that's almost like common sense. But then in Mark's gospel, Jesus says, "Whoever wishes to come after me must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me." That's a tough saying. That's a tough saying. It shows that being a disciple demands sacrifice. That means in part what that means is we must make doing God's will a priority over doing our own will. And that's a challenge for us today. Some people are saying, "I don't want to get vaccinated," or "I don't want to wear a mask. I have a right to make my own choices." But, the common good demands that we do those things to protect the community. And it's kind of frustrating that people that don't quite get that. It's not just about us. It's not about you. It's about us as a community, and we have the evidence is so compelling that vaccinations and mask wearing greatly minimize the spread of the virus. So why wouldn't we do that? In Catholic social teaching, it's clear that the common good has to take precedence over my personal individual good. Taking up our cross also means embracing the crosses that inevitably are a part of our lives, that inevitably come into our lives. Life involves suffering, and no matter how much we might try to avoid it, suffering is a part of life, and we all know that. And even young people, young children, have suffering in their lives. For example, we suffer when we see our loved ones suffering. One of the things that I see is when parents see their children suffering in some way, maybe struggling in school or not fitting in socially, or being socially awkward, being alone, being lonely. And I know that for moms and dads, when they see their sons or daughters in that situation, it hurts them as much as it hurts their son or daughter. So we experience pain when we see our loved ones in pain and suffering, or if we have a loved one who's sick, and so forth. And, unfortunately, sadly, we inevitably hurt each other. We inevitably say mean things. As much as we are trying to be good and kind, sometimes those mean things come out of our mouths and we hurt each other. We oftentimes maybe hurt the people that we love the most, the people that we're closest to, we hurt them the most. And so often I hear in confession people talking about, feeling bad about crabbing at their kids or crabbing at their spouse, etc. Also, we get sick and die, right? That's part of life. I had a seminary professor who said, "If you don't want to suffer, then don't ever love anybody." If you don't want to suffer, don't love anybody, because if you love somebody, that's going to involve pain and suffering, inevitably. And I thought that was really good. And when you think of it that way, it's sort of like, yeah, I'll take the suffering rather than live a life without love. And we also have our personal struggles. I've never met anyone in my 75 years that is not struggling with something, whether it be anxiety, depression, loneliness, low self-esteem, insecurity, anger, lust, envy, or maybe an addiction. I've never met anybody who doesn't struggle with something. When in my early Jesuit training, right after ordination, we had a thing called tertianship, which Father Archie has yet to make, because you get to look forward to that, where we make the 30-day retreat a second time. And I really had a group of guys in our tertianship group who were very accomplished, very successful young Jesuits. And one of the things as we did our faith sharing that struck me and kind of surprised me, kind of startled me, every one of those guys, no matter how confident or successful, they all were dealing with something. They were struggling with something. That just struck me. You know, I don't think there's anybody that doesn't struggle with something. For myself, I've actually had a lifelong struggle with anxiety. I think I inherited that from my folks. I worry a lot, and I struggle to trust that things will work out okay, and I struggle to trust that I will do okay. And oftentimes I wake up in the middle of the night, or I wake up early, worrying about something, and it seems like my crazy mind will find something to worry about. You know, it'll find something. Believe it or not, I oftentimes get nervous in front of groups. It's a little secret that RJ knows. I don't drink coffee before morning masses on Sunday morning because I don't want to add jitters to my already there jitters. And at times I have to admit that this struggle with anxiety and maybe some insecurity and low self-esteem, at times that's gotten me down and it's been discouraging. You know, I think overall I'm a pretty happy, upbeat person, but at times, you know, if I'm feeling, you know, going through a bout of anxiety or whatever, I can start to feel down and discouraged. But the good news is that there's a silver lining. My struggles with anxiety and self-esteem, I think, have made me a more compassionate person, a better priest, and better able to empathize with the pain of other people. Those struggles have also drive me to prayer, to realize my dependence on God. And I sometimes say, okay, God, you want me to do this, you want me to be pastor of this parish, you give me the strength to do it. Give me the strength to do it. And that was a big part of my retreat this summer. I was praying Psalm 23 a lot, and the Lord is my shepherd, and he says, and I will be at your side giving you strength and leading you on correct paths. And that was really consoling on my retreat. But I have to remind myself of that. Also, these struggles have helped me be more humble, and that's not a particularly Jesuit quality, and you may not see me as a particularly humble guy, but when something goes well, it's easier for me to realize that it wasn't me, but it was God working through me, and that's really been a help, and it's also the truth. It's the truth. So those are some ways in which my personal struggle has helped me grow. We're also asked to join our sufferings with the sufferings of Christ and make a prayer out of them. You've heard the expression, offer it up. And I would love it if we all prayed the morning offering. It's a great, great prayer where we say, Dear Jesus, I offer you all the prayers, works, joys, and sufferings of this day in union with the holy sacrifice of the Mass throughout the world for the intentions of your Sacred Heart. So we can offer up our sufferings. So we all suffer. Suffering is a part of life. St. Paul and St. Ignatius encourage us to be grateful for our sufferings because they bring us closer to God. and make us more compassionate and loving and humble. They give us a share in the sufferings of Christ. And I know for both St. Paul and St. Ignatius of Loyola, that was really big, that our sufferings bring us in union with the sufferings of Christ. And so you see in St. Paul's letters, when St. Paul is jailed and whipped and so on, he rejoices because then he can suffer like Jesus did. And one of the things I have to say, we don't have to seek out suffering. It comes, it just comes, doesn't it? It comes as a part of life. But we can offer our suffering up, and we can also let the suffering that comes our way lead us to growth, closer to God, becoming more compassionate, becoming more trusting on God's grace. Amen.